Judith, the Scourge Diva, versus Keranos, God of Storms. Well, if it wasn't for Faithless Looting, I wouldn't consider keeping that, but I'm going to hope that we get into some other sources of mana there. More mountains, okay. Spawning Pit and a mountain are safe to get rid of, I think. Worst case scenario, we crawl our way up to 3 mana and then Faithless Looting again, but that's way too slow. Against a Keranos God of Storms deck. 5 mana Indestructible God, 6/5. You need Devotion. You need Devotion to Is-It of 7 or more for it to become a creature. Reveal the first card you draw on each of your turns. Whenever you reveal a land this way, draw a card, and anything else lets you lightning bolt something. For the sake of staying on curve, somewhat of a curve, we'll go for Skull Clamp. Might come in handy when we get Goblin Rabble Master down. At the beginning of combat on our turn, we get a red goblin with haste. There we go, we've got a black source there. So I want to take a look at my opponent's hand and see if they've got any counters for us. Alright, good to know about the Pyroclasm and the Mysium Mortars. Yeah, I think I'd rather just get rid of Pyroclasm. Mysium Mortars isn't a board wipe until our opponent reaches 6 mana. Just putting a stop on the upkeep because Thassa comes down, so we know what our opponent drew. Yeah, I think I want to Vampiric Tutor for something. Not sure what though. I think Loyal Apprentice is a good way of... Nope, I'm going to go for Bitter Blossom. I'm going to hope that our opponent has a tough time dealing with Bitter Blossom. And Goblin Rabble Master might get blown up by that Mysium Mortars, but if they're doing that, then they're not killing our commander. We've successfully emptied our hand. We can kill our goblin with the Skull Clamp next turn if we want to draw some cards. Our opponent is 2 counters away from drawing with Ancestral Vision. Is Mysium Mortar? That's a sorcery, isn't it? Yes, Mysium Mortar is a sorcery. Deal 4 damage. Well, they've just used it anyway, like we thought they might do. Seen that mountain. Yeah, it looks like they have matching islands, so we'll just say that we've seen that. 2 cards left in hand. Now, Reanimate on Goblin Rabble Master isn't actually terrible, is it? I think I'd rather get down Bitter Blossom, though. We'll swing in with the Goblin, and then we're going to Skull Clamp it. We do not get into a black source, but we do get into Dismember. I don't think that's going to be of any use to us, but you never know. Keranos might get animated. If they get into a land this turn, we can see Keranos. And they'll draw with Ancestral Vision next turn. They get into a land, so they're probably going to... Nope. So that tells me that they might be holding up counter magic. A Braid does nothing currently. Yeah, I'm going to Reanimate on the Goblin Rabble Master. Get ourselves a Goblin. Swinging in. And then I'm going to flashback Faithless Looting. We do get into a land, that's good. We'll ditch a Braid. And Dismember I don't think is going to be of any use to us this game. And then we'll kill the Goblin and draw a couple more cards. Okay, Merciless Executioner isn't necessarily going to be good either. But we could play Merciless Executioner and then sacrifice a Goblin. And then it's a 3-1 as opposed to a 1-1 swinging in. 3 cards being drawn off Ancestral Vision. Yeah, I'm sure they're holding up counter magic now because they're not getting down their Keranos. Don't think Dreadbore's going to be of much use to us either. Do we want to get a counter spell out of our opponent's hand or not? Let's try and get down Judith. I'm sure they're holding on to counter magic. Okay, well that's curious. We at least get more damage through this way. We'll try and get through to combat and see if our opponent allows it. Now then, do they have Ether Spouts? Yeah, that's what they were waiting for. So Ether Spouts. Each attacking creature goes on top of... Oh, its owner puts it on the top or the bottom. So we'll actually... I don't mind drawing into the Goblin Rabble Master again. We'll put that on top. We'll put the tokens on top as well, because they just evaporate when they leave the battlefield. And let's get down the Viscera Seer, just in case our opponent has a Imprisoned in the Moon or something like that. I don't want to Skull Clamp the Fairy Rogue, because I want to push as much damage through as possible. Okay, Dismiss into Dream. I think this switches off Skull Clamp. When this creature becomes the target of a spell or ability, sacrifice it. Yeah, so Skull Clamp does target, as do all equipments, so that switches that off for us. And we're not likely to do anything against an enchantment because we are in the wrong colours for that. We just have to try and push damage through as soon as we possibly can. And then, speaking of pushing damage through, let's sacrifice a goblin to Merciless Executioner. And then we can push a couple more damage a turn through, hopefully. 3 cards left in our opponent's hand. They're at 19 life. Down comes Keranos. And Thassa is still a couple of blue pips away from being animated. This thing needs devotion to blue of 5. And there's only 3 blue pips on the board currently. How much damage can we do next turn? That's 4, 8, 10, 12, 15, and then 16, 17, 18, 19. We might actually be able to do it. Well, we might as well get a scry effect if they're going to get rid of Goblin Rabble Master. We'll definitely peck our opponent. Verdant Catacombs, I don't particularly care about having another land. Try and draw something else. This is, yeah, -1/-1 counters. That is 2 damage to each opponent. So we might be able to make use of that actually. Let's just swing in first and see what happens. Okay, that's 6. We can sacrifice this desert. So let's go 4 mana. Actually, we might as well pay with this because we're going to sacrifice it anyway. Sacrifice that desert. That's 2 damage to our opponent. Yeah, we'll just wait for a second. We can't... It's non-tokens, isn't it? Whenever a non-token creature you control dies. Yeah, we could have done with keeping up the Goblin Rabble Master. But they're on a clock now. A 1-turn clock. If they don't do it now, then they're not going to do it at all. We can deal 3 damage to them by sacrificing Merciless Executioner. Actually, we could only do 2 damage because we need both the Judith and the Viscera Seer in play. But we can do that next turn. Ramunap Ruins can sacrifice itself because it is a desert. We'll just try and swing in, but we've got it either way, I think. Oh, let's see what they've got here. They might have Cyclonic Rift. They do. It's too little too late, unfortunately. Let's deal 2 damage to them. Sack that to its own ability. And then we'll sacrifice the Merciless Executioner. And that's that's 1 damage on our opponent, then Viscera CS sacks itself. And that's another damage. So, making use of the deserts there, which we only have 2 of in the deck, so that was pretty lucky. But I have a feeling we could have gotten the damage through anyway, thanks to Bitter Blossom, and we would have been able to replay Judith there, so I think we were looking okay. But that was an interesting win nonetheless. Judith the Scourge Diva versus Keranos, God of Storms. I'm tribalkai on the EDH channel. Thank you for watching.